in studio with our co-host, the Admiral Bill Stubblefield. Billy.
You know, Rob, listen to that introduction. That's last Friday. John and I were just telling the truth. And we were being challenged, man. But Rob was saying that's not the story. And he was kind of twisting the truth from his perspective.
The Hall of Famer Matt Miller is here. I'm not even going to acknowledge that.
I shall remain the Netherlands and be neutral in all of this. I didn't get a chance to hear it other than the intro itself, which was good. But who wins the battle, I'm not sure.
I had this discussion with Matt last week, and that is that the older I've gotten, the more I've come to accept that there is no such thing as truth anymore, because it's a person's perception of what's true. And what you believe is true to you, and you're not budging. And no amount of persuasion or facts is going to change your mind, because you're going to believe what you believe is true.
And that's probably it's been that case all the time throughout the years, but it seems to be much more apparent now.
So, in absence of that, I just operate on when time is the next meal, and then I'm happy from there. Because if you're full, you're happy.
Yeah.
But your mealtime, because you get up so early in the morning, is still so different than most of people's meal times, right? I mean, you've got to kind of work around that schedule. You've been up for 5 hours before most people are eating breakfast, so technically that's your lunch, right?
That is actually true, yeah. Our guest in this segment is Joe Burton. He is the Executive Director of Martinsburg-Berkeley County Parks and Recreation. Good morning, Joe. Thank you for coming in.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful to have you. You've been on the job now for how long?
It's been a little over a year. It was a year in January.
Right now. So have you gotten everything figured out now? You've been to all the places you need to be to?
I'd like to say I had it all figured out. I don't think that's true, but I think I've got a very good sense of where we are right now and somewhat where we have to head.
And it's budget time, correct?
It certainly is.
Yeah. So what is the operating budget you had last year, and what will you be needing this year?
So last year our operating budget was about $3.5 million, and this year we're looking at expenses that bring it closer to $4.5 million, about $800,000 more than what we had last year.
What changed?
What's changed is I think been our challenge to define. Several things changed. One that I think we're all aware of is it costs more to do every single thing you do. Every product we buy has gone up. Our utility bills have gone up tremendously, about 15% on electric, I believe, and more gas. Our wages have gone up. Just to be able to hire people now, we're paying more than we did years ago. And the use of our parks has gone up tremendously. So what used to look like a special event is now a regular Saturday. When you go by War Memorial Park and you see nearly 1,000 people there and you think, wow, is it June Jubilee today or what's going on? No, it's just a Saturday and the sun's out.
Wow. So
that drives up labor cost and materials and repairs tremendously. I think people don't have they know what we do, but they don't know the details of it sometimes. Simple things like cleaning restrooms and emptying trash cans. There's over 100 trash cans that we empty every day during the season, and many of those twice a day. So it's hard to believe that happens, but it actually does. War Memorial Park alone's got 30 trash cans, and sometimes we have to call the city and ask them to please do extra dumpster pickups because twice a week just isn't enough, because that's how many people are in that park every day.
What do you consider to be the season when you mentioned the season before, Joe?
Well, it's definitely depending on weather. For sure, we used to say like our pavilion season was May through November. So May through the end of October is really the busy season for outdoor activities in the parks. Then we shift to indoor activities. This year, by the beginning of February, it was on. People were complaining that why aren't your bathrooms open yet? Well, they were still winterized, and we were working on getting them back open again. But the parks were full. The weather we had some nice weather in February, and we had to shift gears very quickly. And the challenge of that is it's really not, winter wasn't really over yet. So all of our winter activities are still going strong. We've just got spring basketball and volleyball just getting ready to start. So we still have a considerable amount of time where a lot of labor and effort goes towards our indoor activities, and now it's piled on top is all the outdoor activities opening up.
How do you generate the extra $800,000 that you're going to need for the next fiscal year?
That's literally the $1 million question. So how will we generate that? What might we have to cut back if we can't? It's tricky. So we did a really careful analysis of our budget, and when we put in our budget request this year to the city and the county, we broke it down by facilities in the city limits and facilities in the county limits. What did we spend last year on those specific facilities, and what do we see going up? So we took what we actually spent last year, and we added onto that a 7% increase, which is pretty conservative actually for what's going up for all of our prices. And we added on an additional request for things that have expanded. So an example would be the Stonebridge property that we've taken on through the county. There's a cooperation with DNR to turn the Stonebridge access into a little park there. Well, that's going to be an additional mowing expense. There's going to be trash there, et cetera. So we add on some money for anything we've added like that. Extra areas that we're mowing. We have the new park in Spring Mills that we're going to have to take care of. We added in for that. We added in some money for some of the city properties just based on usage, because what used to be done in one trip is now taking 2 trips just to keep up with demand. So that added up to a couple $100,000 for each of those requests. So between the rising cost of products and operations and what we'd spent the previous year, those requests went up quite a bit. We actually asked for almost $800,000 more from the city and nearly $300,000 more from the county. So that's a heavy request for an organization that was not funded 100% of their request in the past, even when it was much lower. And we totally understand the city and the county are looking at many organizations and trying to figure out this budget. But I felt like it was important. I felt like my job was to define what the true need was and to really spell out where has that money been going. So that's what we tried to do with anticipation of doing some education and having better transparency so that maybe a plan could be made going forward to reach a funding level that would help us out.
Bill, as the former Berkeley County Commission president, I'm sure many times you've sat through these meetings where departments are asking for additional money. I'm sure you got some interesting questions for Joe.
Yes, a lot of interesting questions. But the big thing was when I was county commissioner, that was using parks, hotel motel tax for the first time. That has been a real lifesaver for you from both the city and the county, I assume.
We could not operate without that.
If I look at my numbers, approximately 1/4 of your budget approximately comes from hotel motel tax.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
What about Lambert Pool? Has that been fixed? That problem's been fixed?
Lambert Pool was repaired to the point where we can continue to use it, and the city is looking at every different option. So could we hope that facility is going to need replaced? I think that's the bottom line, is that pool facility has served us well over many, many years, and it needs replaced. Can we keep it operating until a replacement could be built? That is our hope. So
is this decision a city decision or joint Parks and Rec and city or what?
So the city is carrying the weight of the capital funding. Mm-hmm. So it's ultimately a city decision. However, they definitely speak with us about what does it take to operate a pool? What are the repairs that would be needed to keep it going, 1 more year, 2 more years? So that's been our conversation as they're planning for what may happen in the future.
Yeah. You have not yet gotten your city and your county allocation yet for this coming year. But you mentioned some additional properties you're maintaining. One is Stonebridge. That's a beautiful spot, and I can see it'd be an idyllic place for a small park. But it's small. It's out of the way. Can you afford places like Stonebridge with a deficit in the budget like you have now?
We currently can't. I mean, if we have to make hard decisions about what we can do and what we can't do, adding new properties is something we just can't do.
Yeah. But yet it's a beautiful place. I can see why it'd make a wonderful park. But there's only so much you can do with the amount of money you have.
Correct.
Matt Miller.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around some of those numbers, and I wondered if you maybe had some kind of a breakdown of the use of facilities, the number of people that use facilities compared to that cost. Can you lay those numbers out before the city and the county and be able to say, hey, look, we are getting our bang for our buck considering how these facilities are used so much?
I think that would be such a great way to present that, and it's something I'm hoping to be able to do. We actually, when you're working on a shoestring budget and you're trying to pull data and come up with great statistics, sometimes it's hard. I actually purchased these $60 people counters from Amazon and was kind of excited to think, because I looked at some other options that were going to be several $1,000s, and I found these things for $60. I'm like, let's try this. So I put them on the gate at Poorhouse, and I think I'm going to try to get a month of data and see what it looks like. It didn't work. It didn't work. It didn't hold up to the weather. There was no instructions with the thing. It's got this tiny little LCD screen. I was hopeful. Luckily, I have a teenage son that's more tech savvy than me, and he helped me set it up. And it collected data for some time. I was looking at the numbers, and then when I pulled it in 30 days, it was no longer working. So, unfortunately, that didn't work. But we'll continue on. For right now, it's toilet paper and trash cans are a really good way to judge use, and those are things we can count.
Yeah. You mentioned
it's getting the employee to count those. That's the hard part.
Yeah, that's right. What's the staff, Joe? And do you have a difference in the summer staff and the winter staff?
Yeah, we have 20 full-time employees, and our seasonal and part-time employees vary, but it's around 150 a year. So we rely heavily on teenage kids that come and work for us in the winter, and they're all variety of jobs. They're scorekeepers, they're gym attendants, they're concession workers and admission workers, lifeguards.
Yeah, what I was getting at, you mentioned weather turning nice in February, and at War Memorial Park, you had trouble keeping the place maintained. You're doing that with your skeleton staff, I guess, with your 20, because you've not yet hired the summer staff.
Correct.
Yeah.
Winterizing, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, a lot of the summer staff, the majority of those, they're not going to drive a county vehicle. Yeah. They're not going to deal with they're not going to clean bathrooms for the most part. They may do touch-ups on things. They're not going to pull, 50-pound trash bags out. A lot of these jobs are not suited for our teenage kids that fill those positions. There's a select number, very small number of seasonal staff that we try to add that can actually help with some of that heavy lifting.
I was going back to February when we get a few 75-degree days for whatever reason the last several Februarys we have, and people want, hey, why are the bathrooms not open? You mentioned the winterization. There's got to be a cost involved. I mean, can you de-winterize and have something open for 2 or 3 days only to know you may have to winterize it again because it's going to get 30 degrees?
Yeah, it's just not possible.
Right.
I won't say it's not possible. It's not practical.
Yeah.
It costs too much labor and money to go through, unhook all those drains, open everything up, blow everything out with air, add antifreeze. It's just not something you want to do more than once a year. So our hope is to get heated bathrooms that are insulated and heated that can stay open year round, because our weather's changing and the people using our parks are really changing. There was very few days when there weren't lots of people in our parks this year. I'd be very surprised. I went out to open up the barn one November Saturday morning for a wedding, and it was very cold and windy, and there was probably 10 people fishing at the lake. There's people with dogs walking. There's disc golfers out there. It was not a nice day, but the park was still very busy. I bet you all in all there was probably 40 people in the park on a cold November Saturday morning.
What are the hours of the park? The reason I'm asking this is I've been to several cities where the park is utilized greater after hours during the early evening than it would be during the day. Do we have a lot of activity early evening?
We have a tremendous amount. Say from 3 o'clock till dusk is a very busy time. But, people's work schedules are changing. There's all these different schooling opportunities now. And what we're seeing is it's hard to tell what are after hours anymore. The parks are busy even in the mid-morning. If it's a nice day and you go by one of the parks at 10 a.m., there's kids all over the playgrounds. There's parents with them. There's joggers. So I think it's the variety in people's schedules and between school and work now that gives them the ability to go different times of the day.
Going back to the revenue stream, the county is looking at the utilization of the newly empowered impact fees. Have you been in discussion with the county about getting some access to the impact fees?
Yeah, we certainly have. So there's a number of agencies that could potentially benefit from the impact fees, and it's pretty technical how they go about those calculations. So they needed a lot of information from each of those entities that may benefit from them based on what we have now, so they can look at what it would take to make comparable amenities and opportunities in growth areas.
And there's been some talk about the 1% safety tax, or it's called a lot of different things. Do you, the chance of that being enacted, I think, is fairly remote at this point in time. But could you be a beneficiary of the 1% safety tax?
We wouldn't be a direct beneficiary of it. If it freed up funds, that had previously been spent on those safety items, on police and EMS, then it is possible there may be more funds. There may be more in the general fund that would fund other agencies.
Yeah, we kind of skipped over it. We talked before we went on air about some of your funding sources. You get some money from the county. You get some money from the city. You get some money from the library, and then some.
Schools.
Schools. Excuse me. Sorry, from the schools, and then you self-generate some money.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you break down those categories financially for us, Joe?
Sure. So, most of the numbers I'm talking about are year old. They're from the past fiscal year. But give you an idea, we get 50% of the hotel motel from the county and the same 50% from the city. So in the county, that last year, the hotel motel added up to $568,000. And on top of that, the county allocated $140,000 to us. The city, it was $383,000 for hotel motel and $100,000 allocation. Now that's for operating expenses, and depending on projects that are happening, either of those entities may give us capital money. For an example, last year the city provided a couple $100,000 for a roof repair to Berkeley 2000, and also about $70,000 for repaving a section of our parking lot at Berkeley 2000.
And in the past, they've kicked a little extra in for the Lambert Pool repairs, correct?
And they did. Last year, they gave us $45,000 specifically towards Lambert Pool operations. And, the line between capital improvements and repairs and maintenance sometimes blurs a little. With that $45,000, we had to do a lot of work to that building itself, but it did also help. It helped with the loss that we have every year on the pool. Yeah. So then, in addition to that, we received some funds through the excess levy that the schools do. In the past, it's been $112,500 per year, and that will go up in the coming year to it's $20,000 more, so $132,500.
All right. And then the rest of your money is user generation?
That's right. So you add all those sources together, and it's about $1.3 million of our $3.5 million operating budget, and the remaining $2.2 we generate through facility rentals, through our registrations for our rec league and any program that we offer. And I think the difficulty there is overall for what we offer, it's a small percentage that costs money. So some of the greatest, we come out, we either break even or make a little bit of profit in every program we run. If we don't, then we stop doing that program and we shift gears a little bit. So we do just fine on those programs. It's the free things that you can do, like go ride your mountain bike at Poorhouse on lots of trails, or fish in the lake that needs constant work, or use any one of the parks and public restrooms that cost lots of money that don't generate any revenue.
And are you considering an increase in user fees in any way this year, Joe?
So that's part of it. You asked me how do we make up that difference, and that will definitely be part of it. We've gone through and had board approval on some increases for nearly everything that that costs money is going to go up a little bit this year.
Can you define a little bit? I know it's going to vary, but is it 5%, 10%, 1%?
It does vary, but it's 10% on some things, it's 15% on others. Some things it's more of a correction than just an increase. Some things hadn't gone up in many, many years, and we took a look at what do other people charge for it. We thought, geez, we're not even on the map on that one, so we've got to raise it a little bit more, but 10 to 15% on a lot of things, yeah.
And what capital projects do you have coming up for Parks and Rec that you need to address?
Well, we're finishing the park at Spring Mills, and I just had a discussion with the county commission about that, and we're working out the funding for the remaining couple $100,000 to go on that one to get it wrapped up. That will be opening up in April is our goal, by the end of April, to have that park, and it's very close right now. That's going to be the biggest capital improvement in this fiscal year. We're really not planning much capital. We do have a grant-funded project to add a piece of ADA equipment to War Memorial Park, and we're just finishing the new Hollow Pavilion that was funded mainly through War Memorial Park Association. There are not going to be a lot of other capital improvements. Of course, the county will be putting phase one of the Inwood Park out to bid, so that will be exciting to see that coming, and I'm not sure how much will actually happen in the calendar year, but that will be one coming.
As you finish Spring Mills Park soon, and you're hoping to open it in April, does that mean you have to hire additional staff, additional lawnmowers, additional whatever to maintain that park as well?
It means that work has to be done. It needs to be done by someone, and how we stretch our current staff to do that, I don't know. I did ask for some additional staff in our budget request. Again, I don't. We haven't heard what our exact allocation will be from the city and the county. We are fairly confident it's not going to be what we asked for. So then we'll have to shift gears a little bit and try to decide again what can we do versus what's just not possible for us.
Joe, there's a need or expressed need of river access property. Any chances at all of acquiring river access property?
That's something that it was started. The county's been looking at opportunities on the Potomac, and they do own some parcels on the Potomac. They have a ways to go before that would be a viable public access. That would be so exciting to me. I think we have so many opportunities, and it's a shame that you have to cross the river to have access. And the Pecan property at Stonebridge really opens up some opportunities there, and we're excited for the DNR to reach out to us about that.
Exactly.
It creates the opportunity for a river trail where we could look just downstream a little bit at 45 and say, could we one day get another public access there with a kayak takeout, and we start to have something kind of exciting happening there. So there's a lot of opportunities. We need the funding to match it. We've got the undeveloped new property at Poorhouse that's 70 acres with so much potential that we haven't had anything to do with it yet.
Joe, thanks for dropping by today, man.
Really appreciate it.
Good luck to you coming up with the budget.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Joe Burton, Executive Director of Martinsburg-Berkeley County Parks and Rec, to lead off the show here.